Welcome to Nacho Speed Garage, a show about Honda performance. In this episode, we have a lot for you.
Yeah, we check out the 20th anniversary of Battle of the Imports. Then we get a sneak peek at the Kraftwerks supercharger for the Civic Si.
Let's get right to it though. First place we went was the Bay Area to check out Weekfest. If you weren't early to Weekfest SF, then you were going to be hurting for a parking spot. And here's why. Estimates put the attendance for this year's show at Fort Mason around 15,000. The line was thick and stretched way back. But at the business end of the line, waited over 400 plus quality rides for the diehards to check out. Weekfest SF filled not one but two huge halls and spilled out to the exterior. Inside the show had DJs mixing live, models, dancers, and vendors adding to the event's atmosphere. However, the real draw were all the badass builds on display. Cover and feature cars were everywhere. It was like a who's who of magazine cars in 3D. Every year, Weekfest seems to get bigger and better, and in a time where a lot of people are cutting back, that really is saying something about how well run the show is and the quality of the cars being put together. We can't wait to see what the future Weekfest events have in store. As usual, Weekfest show was outstanding, but I think the really big news is the fact they're taking this nationwide. They've already had their LA show, next they're heading off to Chicago, then Dallas, then they're going to end up the year in sunny Hawaii. If you want more information, you can visit our blog at nachospeedgarage.tv.
This Hotsport quick tip is about balls. More importantly, ball joints. They go bad, boots tear, whatever. You bend it, messing around with something else, you drive like a jerk. They got to be changed. Honda makes some very specific tools to make that job a lot easier. You have your installer remover tool, your remover base, and your installer base. Now let's see how they all work together. First thing we have to do to use these tools is take off the boot. And there's a little clip on here, and you can use just a regular screwdriver to pop the clip off. And take off the boot and wipe away the grease. Booyah! I feel like I'm changing a newborn baby's diaper. You know, the green shit everywhere. Alright, once you get the grease cleaned off of there, you're going to take your installer remover tool, skinny end first, and slide it over the bolt, and then you're going to put the nut on the end. And you know, you don't have to put the nut on, but this could fall out and, you know, hit you in the foot, and that's not so much fun. So you just put it on there, put it on a couple threads. It's just mainly to keep it from falling out when you remove the ball joint. Next, we're going to take the remover base and put it on the back side of the ball joint. Right here. Bam. And then we're going to take this over to the vise and squeeze one off. All right, for this part, you're going to need a vise that opens to at least, 5 inches. And if you don't know what 5 inches is, ask your girlfriend. Once you get it in there, start tightening it down. And if it's in there super good, like this one, get the cheater bar out. So, for this part, we're ready to put in our new ball joint. You just put it in, and you want to push it down as far as you can get it. Usually it's till the metal meets the metal. And then we take our installer remover tool, put it on the bottom here, big side facing the ball joint. And then we have our installer base, and it goes on this part like this, and you put it in the vise and tighten it up. There you go, new ball joint installed just the way they do it at the Honda dealership, except the tools that we use cost less than 1 hour of labor. And that's your Hotsport quick tip. FG Civic Si, the Civic that brought the SI moniker back to prominence. Armed with the good K20 and a mean profile, it's a blast to drive right out of the box. But for most of us, there's always room for improving the breed. From the minds that brought the world Jackson Racing and Skunk 2 comes Kraftwerks, with what they call the next evolution of supercharging. We met up with the Jacksons, both junior and senior, to get the lowdown on the new kit for the 2006 to 2011 Civic Si.
We wanted to adapt the system so that we could make it as original equipment look and feel as possible. It does it very cleanly, and it does it through a stock exhaust, stock catalytic converter, stock catback system. It took us over a year to get it finished, but the final product has been outstanding.
Keep in mind that the setup we see here is a prototype, so there will be slight differences in the production version.
The computer is a Hondata reflash. The people at Hondata have worked with us to get a perfect fuel calibration, so the car will rise from 175 wheel horsepower to over 300 wheel horsepower.
It's almost like driving a bigger engine in your car, a bigger NA powered car.
And Junior ought to know, he drives the Sport Car Motion Integra Type R, which also rocks a Kraftwerks supercharger. At first, the Roadtrex unit appears to be similar to other superchargers, but looks are where the similarities end.
This drive uses a planetary system. This outer pulley turns the entire system. This is a cutaway here, so you can kind of see the inner workings. The pulley turns to a shaft that turns this drum. And then this drum turns 3 rollers in the center, right here, that turn the center shaft to the impeller. The planetary drive is much quieter, is a lot more efficient, and it can do a lot higher impeller speeds. What's patented about this system is not only the planetary drive, but the ramp effect. The ramp effect is these 3 rollers are not always solid fixed. There's one roller that will move back and forth to have give in the system and also give grip to the system back and forth. It's almost like a suspension component that it allows the drive to live. And without the ramp effect, the drive systems wouldn't work as long as they do.
No release date has been announced, but you can check in at kraftwerksusa.com for the latest details and other Kraftwerks boost options. As of right now, no official release date has been announced, but as soon as we hear word, we'll let you know.
For our second Hassport Quick Tip, we're going to talk about another specialty tool. This is called a crank pulley holder. And you notice it's a large 50mm hex, and all the Honda crank pulleys have this 50mm hex built into them. The crank pulley holder, you team it up with a breaker bar, then you can use it to actually hold the crank pulley while you're either breaking loose the crank pulley bolt or tightening it. It's particularly helpful when you're trying to torque it down, because you got to torque this bolt down to 130 foot-pounds. You can basically brace the end of the handle up against, say, the subframe or core support, and then easily torque down the crank pulley bolt. Hey, if you're interested in more information about any of the tools we used in today's Hassport Quick Tips, visit the Nacho Speed Garage Facebook page. We'll have part numbers there for you. That's been your Hassport Quick Tip.
Hi, I'm Oscar Jackson from Kraftwerks USA. I'm here with Mike Choi of Battle of the Imports. Mike?
How you doing, Oscar? Always a pleasure to see you.
The first Battle of the Imports, I sponsored it. You and your brother put it on in 1990. Just looking back on it, you know, we were driving on the streets and we were hot rodding around, and there weren't any real tracks that accepted us back then, and so we ended up street racing. So give me an idea of how you and your brother got this idea to go.
Well, like you said, street racing, you know, there became a point where it started getting a little bit more dangerous. You know, call it the gang element, you know, rough crowd, or maybe even just a new generation that just thought differently of street racing. When we were street racing, you know, everyone pretty much knew each other. There was like a camaraderie where, I guess, you know, hindsight, there wasn't really nothing to worry about other than just racing and collecting money, I guess.
It was more like just fun between each other. Oh, I can beat your car, I can beat your car.
A little bit more competitive than that, but I mean, like, back then, you know, in the mid to late 80s, yeah, you know, there weren't any places for us to play around other than the street races. And, you know, we could thank our V8 brothers for introducing that to us, you know, where these industrial places were for us to meet up. And all of a sudden it became more and more imports, you know, just word caught on, you know, friends of friends, you know, older brothers, cousins or whatever. Hey, they're heading out to the street races. There's a bunch of imports like yours. So it became a little bit more of a gathering. And I guess because of that, you know, just brought out different influences. So there's a point where we thought it was becoming a little bit more dangerous, especially with the faster cars that were there. You know, you had, you know, Supra turbos that were fully built, upgraded turbos, you know, 510s with 13B motor swaps that were pretty quick. My brother wanted to see how fast his RX-3 was at the time, and being on the streets, there's no way to gauge it. So we wanted to take it to a legitimate track, and at that time, that was Los Angeles County Raceway, good old Palmdale, you know. Yeah. So the first time that he went, he was turned away because it was some type of V8 event, and it kind of sucked. So we wanted to do it again, and the same thing happened. And I guess we didn't realize that tracks were constantly running, you know, they had their own special events or whatever. So we got to the point where we wanted basically to throw it back in their face and say, hey, what if we had our own event and got to turn away V8s and V6s and had an import day where no American muscle or, you know, Detroit Iron can come play with us. And that's kind of like where the whole idea stemmed, you know, to host our first Battle of the Imports. You know, so we talked to Bernie, you know, gotta love Bernie, you know, about hosting an event, and he was kind of skeptical but supportive at the same time. And we made the first event happen. You know, here we are 20 and 17 years old. You know, our youngest brother at that time was 14. And we just got like the little neighborhood kids to whoever could drive, pack up the cars and say, hey, you're helping us out, do our first event. So we learned really quick what it was to hold an event, let alone a drag racing event, you know. You know, companies like yours back then, Oscar, you know, Jackson Racing, we even had AEM and John Cuccialdi, Richard Z and ZX, which is Richard Banuelos, you know, a few other small shops at the time support us. And a lot of these shops that were actually street racing, like you guys, like HKS, you know, the guys from like Light Speed, AEM, you know, all these guys were always in the same street racing areas. And when they got word that we were having an actual drag race where you can see quarter-mile time slips, everyone started like, oh, okay, this is going to be interesting. Now we can see how fast his car actually is, or how fast his car actually is. It was a lot of fun, and I think ultimately that's what sparked everything, because we kept getting phone calls, especially from the racers. Hey, when's your next event? When's your next event? And I think, you know, a little bit of the realization that, oh, I'm not really a 10-second street car, you know, played into that too, wanting to beat them, you know, or beat whoever it was the next event, you know, in front of a crowd or a larger crowd, and it just grew from there.
Well, you know, from my point of view, we don't like to admit we were out street racing, but you know, we did a lot of it, and at that time it was the only way we could quantify what we were doing. You know, we'd go race our buddy. But you're right, we got turned away at a lot of the races. Your position about you know, creating Battle of the Imports because it was getting dangerous, you know, at a couple of the events the really fast cars got sideways and a few people got killed, and we, you know, that was part of the push to like, well, we need something of our own. Right. And because I was trying to go to the tracks all the time to test our cars, to test the Jackson Racing products, and we kept getting turned away, you know, I kept thinking, what are we going to do? So, you know, when we talked about you guys doing the first Battle of the Imports, I said, Jackson Racing's 100% behind it, because if we can pull this off, we now have a place for our people to go to do the racing. It's safe. We can really quantify what we're doing. When you did the first event, people said it couldn't be done. There was no advertising. It was all grassroots, and yet you filled every single grandstand at that event. And every year when you had the Battle of the Imports, people worked an entire year to get their car ready for the battle. And people boo-hooed it, said, oh, it's a flash in the pan. Yeah. And then next thing you know, there's another copycat import drag racing group. And then another one comes along, and another one comes along. And then eventually the big dog comes along and says, well, we can't just run Top Fuel, we got to get involved in this. Yeah. And they got in it just because it was popular at the time. They didn't get in it because of the passion that we have. Right. They got in it because it was popular at the time. Well, let's go do this.
And I think that's an important point that you make is the passion. You know, it's like we've never known anything else. We came from street racing. It's something that, you know, we grew up with, loved, shared the same interest with our friends down the street, college friends, high school friends, or whatever the case is. Yeah, you know, we were met with a lot of resistance. I mean, like I said, my brother and I were really young when we started this. No real business knowledge on how to do anything. You know, it was total grassroots. You know, go to Kinko's, make 10,000 copies of a, you know, single page flyer and go hand them out at the street races. Say, hey, we're having Battle of the Imports. What is it? It's like, well, we're just gonna have street races at the track now because everyone keeps getting busted or crashing. It's a lot safer. No one's gonna get jacked or, you know, something like that.
Tell me about today's racers, the people that come to you today, and where you see Battle of the Imports now and into the next few years.
Well, Battle of the Imports, I mean, today, well, this whole year was our 20th anniversary.
Awesome.
Thank you. You know, we're trying to figure different ways on how to culminate the 20th anniversary here at Auto Club Dragway, which is in Fontana. You know, we left it as our season finale. A lot of it has gone full circle. You know, we had the 3, 4, 5 years where pros were the prominent draw. You know, where everyone wanted to see who would be the first into the 6s or the 7s or whatever the case is, or who had, you know, the best looking $1 million race car. And, you know, 20 years later, I think everything's come full circle where a majority of the spotlight is back on the privateer, is back on the real quick and fast street cars. And I think nowadays with our street category, which is a great category to participate in, is basically if you got a fully built street car, come and run it.
Well, you know, it's been a great journey. We've all seen a great revolution in going from just hacking at our cars 20 plus years ago to, you know, even the amateurs today are much more refined than we were when we started out. So it's an exciting trip that we've made down memory lane, and it's been a great 20 years.
Yeah, it definitely has been. I can't believe it's still 20 years, but, you know, we couldn't have done 20 years, let alone 10, 5, if, you know, we didn't have the support that we've had, you know, especially from the participant level. You know, you have kids, and I don't care how long we go into the future, but I think there will always be someone that wants to go fast, and they're going to want to go fast somewhere. So yeah, you know, 20 years, hopefully another 20 more, and it's all because of the support we've gotten over the years. So yeah.
Well, if it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't have Fast and Furious as a perfect example. Yeah. Well, you know, it's been a great trip. I've enjoyed it. I get to see the next generations out here in strollers running around, and I think that we're going to be around here a long time watching guys racing import cars. And you know, the hats off to you and your brother for continuing to push and refine the sport, refine the regulations, and give these young people a place to race. Thank you.
Thank you, Oscar. It's always great to see you again.
All right. Thank you, buddy.
Special thanks to Oscar Jackson for doing that really quick interview.
And if you have any feedback or you got questions, why don't you drop us a line at asknsg@nachospeedgarage.tv.
And while you're at it, hit us up on Facebook and like us. Your friends will be impressed. Stay tuned because next we're going to go to the Honda Mecca at IBOC.
It was a spring event.